Good afternoon, everybody. Sam Romeo here, environmental educator from Aullwood, and today I'm talking about signs of woodpeckers in trees. All right. Now, before we get started, how do you think woodpeckers don't get headaches all day from pecking trees nonstop? That's literally all they do, right? Now, they have a couple adaptations to help prevent this. First of all, they have kind of a cartilage pillow, I guess, padding inside of their head. In the front of their skull that helps protect, their brain from smacking against their inside of their skull when they're pecking the tree. The other thing is, they have very long tongues, right? They have those long tongues to look for all those insects, to kind of feel around because their eyes are on the side of the head, so they can't really see inside of the holes. They need to feel around, and of course, those hairs, help grab the bugs. But that tongue muscle, okay, it's inside of their head. It's so long that the tongue actually wraps around their skull inside of their head to kind of keep their brain and everything else in place while they're doing all that pecking. Now, there's a lot of diagrams, a lot of cool things. You can look this up, but it is unbelievable that the tongue muscles actually wrap around their brain. Of course, they have extra muscles in their neck and their shoulders. They have a couple other adaptations, but that cartilage padding inside of their skull and that tongue is a main indicator of how they can be safe about it. So here in this tree is a hole made by a pileated woodpecker, which is North America's largest woodpecker. That is, unless you believe the ivory-billed woodpecker is still out there somewhere. But these holes are usually kind of oval shaped, kind of square shaped. I usually see them more like this. But these are essentially the shape of pileated woodpecker holes. They can do work. They have those big, giant beaks. Now, they mostly use their beaks kind of like chisels. And as you can see, if you look inside, you can actually see the striation marks from the beaks. So they kind of hack in there and chip away all that wood. Sometimes you can find a lot of old wood chips. There's some right there on the ground from when a woodpecker has been working on the tree. And now, of course, they're looking for bugs, and this is a black cherry tree. And they usually rot from the inside out. So these are usually filled with a lot of bugs, ants, and everything else. But they use these holes, initially to find food, but they can use them for nesting holes, especially other species of birds. This tree right here, since it's right next to the path, is a tree that I used to stop at all the time while teaching students. And one time there was a black rat snake, a little tiny black rat snake sitting inside of this hole. So these holes are used awfully a lot by a lot of different animals and species. So, and there's another really big one with the big striations in it. And a couple other. So once again, that is the pileated woodpecker that makes these shaped holes. So here we have another black cherry, but this has been worked on by a different woodpecker. And you can see these holes are a little more round, a little more deep. And these are made by Downy Woodpeckers, hairy woodpeckers, or red-bellied woodpeckers. And I know that because these birds use their beaks more as kind of drill bits, kind of probing in holes. They kind of work their way in, kind of like a drill bit, while pileated woodpeckers kind of work their way like an axe or a chisel, kind of chipping away at it. And you can see these holes are a little smaller, and they were able to work in to get inside of the hollow piece, because remember I said black cherries kind of are hollow from the inside, and they'll stick their tongue in these deep holes to look for all those bugs. And they have a very barbed tongue too. So pileated woodpeckers, square holes. Other woodpeckers like the downy, the hairy, red-bellied will make kind of these circular holes. Last but not least, one of my favorite woodpeckers. And you see these holes are in a straight line. All right, there's some more. There's some there, some there. And this is a sugar maple tree. And these holes were made by the Yellowbellied Sap Sucker. Now this is a migrating woodpecker. It winters here in Ohio. And what they do is, yes, they eat sap. Okay, now depending on the tree species will also mean, depending on the shape of the holes, on birch trees sometimes because it's a thinner bark where the sapwood is kind of closer. They kind of make these square patterns on the bark. But most trees that you see them working on are sugar maples, hickory trees, pine trees, cherry trees, apple trees. I've even seen them on calorie pears. And what they do is they make these holes in kind of a corkscrew pattern sometimes the whole way around. And just how we get maple syrup is we make a little tapping hole. And this is actually a tree that we have tapped in the past. You can see there's the big hole. Now what they do is they'll fly to this tree, they'll make some holes to kind of peck into, and then they'll fly away to another tree and kind of work on another one. And during that time, this will start dripping out, it'll start kind of bleeding out, and that's when they get their sap. Now the other great thing too is when this is running in the springtime, there's a lot of bugs, a lot of gnats, a lot of smaller insects that are attracted to these older holes that start to leak out the sap again. And hummingbirds, warblers, other woodpeckers all use these little holes to find all those bugs. So these sapsucker holes that were made in the wintertime, come springtime, are used by a lot of different species of birds to eat a lot of insects, especially during migration. But if you ever see this pattern on your trees before, that is from the Yellowbellied Sap Sucker. Well, I want to thank everybody again for watching this week. I hope you learned something new. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.